C5 Insight is a Microsoft partner that plans, builds, and supports solutions in Dynamics 365, Teams, SharePoint, and the Power Platform. Contact us to modernize your business today.
Hello and welcome to Copilot for Sales Bootcamp on email efficiency. My name is Haley and I'm going to be your webinar moderator today. If you haven't engaged with us before, C5 Insight is a Microsoft partner that helps organizations modernize their digital workplaces and accelerate business results through people-centric digital transformation. A few housekeeping items. This presentation is 15 minutes of concentrated content on how to improve your email efficiency with Copilot for Sales. We welcome your questions throughout the presentation. You can go ahead and submit those questions by clicking the Q&A icon at the top of your screen. And we encourage you to stay tuned after the presentation for a 30-minute roundtable discussion with Prachi from Microsoft and the C5 team, where we'll answer your questions. And handing it off to Jordan.
Great, thank you so much, Haley, for the introduction here. And like she said, this is going to be the first of our sessions for Copilot for Sales. And today we're going to be solely focused around email efficiency. So let's go ahead and jump in, because as you heard, we only have about 15 minutes before we are ready for our roundtable. So looking at our overall agenda today with that topic of email efficiency in mind, we're going to be drilling into 3 different features found in Copilot and Copilot for Sales that can be utilized in Outlook to make your email habits more effective and more efficient with your clients and internally with your other business partners. We're going to be starting with drafting an email, moving on to summarizing emails, and then finally seeing how, with the help of Copilot and Sales, you can get coached around your email habits and the messages that you're sending. As we go through, we are going to be watching small demo videos with each one of these topics after I introduce the topic at hand. And we'll be able to, hopefully at the end, also go through some live demos for anybody that might want to see them. But starting off here with our very first topic around how you can become more efficient with your emails using Copilot and Sales, we're going to look at how Copilot can help you draft emails. So there are going to be ways that you can draft, whether it is looking at individual emails, and if you want to be able to pull in a lot of that CRM data to really bring those to the next level and make sure that you're including any contacts, opportunity, leads, and additional information to take that draft to the next level. So let's take a look at the video that we have here and see how you can combine those features to do just that. Together, let's take a look at how we can use Copilot for Sales in Outlook to draft and send more effective emails. To start, we need to find Copilot for Sales, and that'll be located in your Apps button directly inside of your ribbon. There's going to be a couple options, and I want to start by searching Copilot for Sales because I want to send over one of my CRM records to Jeff before we start drafting an email. I'm going to go ahead and just click into search for record to pull up some of my recent ones. And after clicking on the one I want to send, it's automatically going to pull a record from my CRM directly into this email. Now that Jeff had time to review the account in CRM, I'm going to hop into the email thread that he started with one of their main contacts. Once again, I'm going to open up Copilot for Sales, this time using the full panel that is going to appear on the right. And you're going to notice that because I already have my contact linked in my To section to send my email, it's automatically going to pull information from CRM that is tied to that contact. So I can see additional contacts linked with them, current opportunities we have open, their full account information, and more. I wanted to draft an email asking to summarize the email thread that we've already been having and to propose a meeting time. From here, it's going to take just a moment to summarize everything that's already been talked about. And once that is done, all I have to do is click Add to Email, and it's instantly going to bring that into the message and allow me to get that meeting started. Now, just to call out a couple other things here before we move on from our drafting process. So not only does Copilot inside of Outlook give you that drafting option, and you might have seen that if you've already played around with Copilot or are using Copilot from Microsoft 365. But the really great part of this when using Copilot for Sales is that integration with your CRM, whether it's Salesforce, maybe you're using Dynamics 365 Sales as well. It's going to allow you to bring all of that information in without having to juggle between multiple different windows and applications, and have that all live in one place. And after you have that email drafted, you also have the ability to change a few of the features and change the messaging content that's in there. So it's going to give you the ability to change the tone of the email. Maybe you're talking internally, so it doesn't need to sound as formal, so you can change it to a more casual tone. Maybe you want to change the length, and you can go from short, medium, to long, depending on the expectations of the message that you're sending out. And all of that is going to be able to happen directly inside of that Copilot for Sales panel, so you don't have to jump around, and it's going to make it nice and simple for you directly inside of Outlook. Now that we saw how we can combine our sales data with our CRM into the drafting and email process for our communications, let's build on that a little bit and move into summarizing an email. So imagine there's already a lot of this email thread going on. You and your team members have been using these great Copilot for Sales features to have thorough conversations with your customers, and there's a lot of people involved, multiple people on their end and yours, and you just got forwarded this thread that you want to be able to hop in and make some impact, but you don't want to miss out any of the information that might have already been in there. We're going to watch a video here talking about how using Copilot for Sales is going to help you summarize that content so you can get involved in a conversation without missing a beat. Let's take a look at another Copilot feature found in Outlook that can seamlessly integrate with your CRM using Copilot for Sales. Today, we're going to be talking about Summary by Copilot, and as you see, this feature is going to automatically appear at the top of any email or email thread that you may have. All you have to do is click on the summary, and it's going to take just a moment to generate a full summary of the email after scanning all of the information that you may have missed. And in this summary, it's going to give you the important people, topics, and if needed, we'll even give you citations to where in that email thread the information is coming from. Not only that, but I can go a step further by clicking into Add Sales Insights. It's going to take just another moment to scan through and try to pull out any information that is more specific to the sales process. After the additional scan, you're going to see updated verbiage all through my summary, including additional information that is more specific to my sales process with this client. If this looks great and I want to save that information, all I have to do is click on my Go to Sales button at the bottom to open up my full Copilot for Sales panel that allows me to save this directly into CRM. So similar to the features that we saw when we were looking at the drafting an email, you are going to have some basic things available to you if you're just using Copilot for M365 license. So you might be able to get a simplified summary calling out some of those points. But with that added insight that is going to come along with having Copilot for Sales, it's going to just give you that additional information that isn't just summarizing, but it's bringing it into the sales process. It's going to show you specific items that you sell that have been talked about and that you might want to ask more questions around. It's going to talk about any tasks and asks that came from the customer that have deadlines you need to meet. And like we saw, the Go to Sales button is going to pull open the panel we were just looking at in the previous video and allow all of this summary to be instantly pulled into your CRM process. So then you can use it to draft other emails, maybe just update the notes on your records for that account, or maybe there was a new contact that was introduced to this email thread. You'll be able to save that directly into your CRM thanks to Copilot for Sales and the built-in CRM additions that come along with it. Now that we've seen this journey of building and drafting emails with our CRM data using the drafting features on Copilot, and then move that to the next step of summarizing those email threads, allowing us to jump right into the action without skipping a beat, all while making sure that those records are updated and saved in our CRM process along the way. Let's take a look at how we can then also use Copilot to coach us around our communication habits and ways that we can improve our overall messaging. Now, unlike the last couple of features that were more focused on using AI to generate content based on data and prompts we gave it, email coaching is going to be using AI to scan and analyze the types of messages that you're sending and give you suggestions to make sure that the messaging is aligned with what you wanted to say, and that when your client is going to be reading it, they're going to get the message that you want them to get out of what you're sending. So let's watch one more video before we move on from here. Let's take a look at how we can use coaching by Copilot to help us elevate the messages that we're sending to our clients. I've already gone ahead and drafted an email and linked an account from my CRM using Copilot for Sales, but now I want to make sure that this reads correctly before I send it over. All I have to do is open up Copilot and click on my coaching feature, and it'll take just a second to analyze and scan through what I already have typed up and give me some suggestions that I can make to improve my overall messaging. And after just a moment, it's going to scan through the message that was there and give me some different recommendations for the message at hand. It's going to include the tone, the reader sentiment, and the clarity, and give me different ways that I can improve my message based on how it thinks my client's going to read it. So as we saw, again, this one isn't about generating content for you, but it's just making sure that the habits and the verbiage that you're using is exactly what your customer needs to be reading for your message to come across clearly. Also, what I really enjoy about this and wanted to call out, and you might have noticed as we have gone through all three of these demos today, is even though Copilot is going to be using AI to generate content, draft emails, give you suggestions, none of these things were automatically sent or automatically even added into the body of an email without your approval first. Every step of this is meant to be intentional for you, and to really have the intentionality behind everything you're sending, everything you're putting in front of one of your peers or your clients, to make sure that no matter who's assisting, no matter who your co-pilot is that day, you're still the one that is the main pilot and having control over that conversation. So now that we were able to look over 3 different features that not only are available with Copilot, but are elevated using Copilot for Sales, we are going to be moving into some of our next rounds here that are going to be bringing in one of our Microsoft partners directly, and just opening up to a full expert roundtable for any additional questions and things that you may want to see.
Struggling to leverage Microsoft Enterprise solutions? At C5 Insight, we understand the intersection between technology, business, and people. Contact us to learn more.
And I believe we have Haley that's going to be hopping back into to kick off this next part of our session.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jordan. You got a lot in there in a short period of time, so kudos to you. And I think what you said at the end was really important. Feeling like you're in the pilot seat when you're using AI, aka Copilot, is really important. So I haven't seen any questions from the audience come in too much, but if you come up with a question while we're in this Q&A for the next 30 minutes, feel free to drop those in there. But I had some questions come to mind as we were listening to the presentation. So I'd love to get Jeff, Jordan, and Prashi's feedback. So one of the frequently asked questions I think people might be asking is, how important is this Copilot capability in email? What's the return on investment from me spending time like learning how to use Copilot and integrating it into my workflow as a salesperson?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Haley, and I can chime in on something that I just enjoyed seeing Jordan's presentation on how you're able to save so much time, not only looking at the email threads, but also being able to draft those emails really helps with that writer's block that a lot of sellers deal with when they have so many different types of customer inquiries that come in as well. So definitely a huge return on investment with saving around 30 minutes per day, even on the email burden that a lot of sellers deal with.
Yeah, I would second that. It's so early in the release of Copilot, it's hard to talk in a lot of detail about it, but I can tell you from personal experience and experience with some of our clients, even going back to using ChatGPT before Copilot was available to them. One of the reasons why we queued up this as the first of the 8 videos is because this is one of the earliest and most obvious and simplest ways to save time. And in today's world, even for us, we are so email centric in everything we do, whether it's a quick reply to an email that came in or a very detailed reply following up on a meeting or something like that. This saves us a ton of time every week. I tell folks, I feel like this capability alone by like day 4 of the month has cost justified the entire Copilot spend, and it's only one of the things that Copilot does for us.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that, Jordan? I have something else that came to mind as well.
Yeah, I think just when looking at this, and again, a lot of these time-saving features that we went through today, it might be new features to even some of us that are using it. A lot of the businesses, they're starting to adopt it as these brand new Copilot features are coming out seemingly daily with brand new updates. But Microsoft themselves has put out some research and information around some of their heavy users and how it's really impacting them, and found that with 25% of the most active users in its apps, normally they spend close to 9 hours a week just reading and writing. And as we saw, the ability to severely trim down that time, whether it's summarizing an entire thread of emails and pulling out all the important pieces of information and contacts within there, or just getting rid of that busy work of making sure you're using the right verbiage, everything's in the right tense, and all of that information, is going to be giving back almost a quarter of that person's work week to really then invest in the conversation, invest in working with their clients, collaborating with their peers, and just spending that time in a more efficient way.
Yeah, I think that's great. I have a question about CRM, but we had a question come in from Manuel, and they asked, some more tech-savvy salespeople are using ChatGPT to draft emails. How does that compare with Copilot for Sales?
I'd love to answer this one first, if that's okay. I think this is a great question, Manuel. There's a lot of people using ChatGPT, even myself back in the days when it first launched, there was so much hype around ChatGPT. But what I think is important and unique about Copilot for Sales is that it's able to surface all of your CRM details for your sellers with that Azure grade enterprise security. So when we type questions into ChatGPT, especially with enterprise scenarios, you don't know where that, is being saved. Whereas with Copilot for Sales, you have that Microsoft assurance that everything is backed by Azure grade enterprise security, and everything you view in Copilot for Sales is only what you're allowed to see through your CRM credentials. So you definitely have that compliance and privacy aspect keyed up.
Yeah, and I think there's a security element, but there's also the context element, which is what Prachi was kind of referring to earlier. When I still use ChatGPT for some things, part of it's probably because I got so hooked on it over a year that I'm still kind of learning the process of, do I even need to do anything in ChatGPT anymore? But I can tell you when I'm generating emails, it's second to none to use Copilot because it has the context of the whole email dialogue already, and even beyond that, the rest of the relationship. So if there are other documents or pieces of information, whether they're in our CRM system or out there in SharePoint or in Outlook, it can look at all of that to try to craft the response. So it's going to create a much more contextual response. Whereas in ChatGPT, the only information it has as an input is what's out there in the web and whatever I've typed directly into ChatGPT. So more efficient, higher quality return when I'm using Copilot rather than ChatGPT for my emails.
I would add on a little bit additionally to that as well. Outside of the security connectivity that Prachi talked about, and just that connectivity across the many different applications that you're going to be using in your day-to-day, like Jeff was going into, I think also just when we look at Copilot and AI and the many different versions of it out there, like we were just talking about, these things update pretty regularly. It can feel overwhelming and a lot to learn, especially as you're needing to focus on your regular work and your priorities that need to get done there. That I have found it to be very convenient to learn and have a consistent user interface across each one of these. So rather than needing to go to something separate like a ChatGPT and then move that information into my Microsoft suite, that's going to be set up a little differently. Features are going to be found in maybe a different place. It's just going to make it a much better learning experience and adoption experience for you and your team, having that consistent interface across every single one of the applications that you're going to be using.
Yeah, I think those are great points. It also brings up another conversation now that we brought ChatGPT into the mix in relation to Salesforce, because you could say like a competitor to Copilot would be Einstein, which is the AI assistant within Salesforce. So could you talk a little bit about what the difference is between Einstein and Copilot, and why you might need Copilot functionality if you already have Einstein in Salesforce?
Yes, that's a great question that a lot of our customers are curious about. I think the biggest differentiator for Copilot for sales specifically is the fact that it allows you to stay in your flow of work directly in your productivity applications like Outlook and Teams. Today, Jordan showed you all of the capabilities in Outlook, how you're able to have generative AI help you every step along the way. As Jeff mentioned, it also pulls in all of your Microsoft documents, Word, PowerPoints, whatever documents you have in SharePoint. It's all available to you to get that generative AI capabilities in your flow of work. Whereas Einstein, from what I understand, works directly in Salesforce. And one of the biggest differentiators for Copilot, especially Copilot for Sales, is everybody wants to be able to be more productive outside of CRM while still keeping data hygiene in CRM up to date. So that's the biggest differentiator, in my opinion.
And just do want to throw in there that although Salesforce is that separate platform and they do have their own Copilot feature with Einstein, Microsoft Copilot can work within Salesforce. You are going to have some features that will cross over to the different software, and you're able to still collaborate, still get your information into the processes that we showed you today, even using that separate platform, but using Microsoft's Copilot. So that's helping really bridge that gap between their separate AI technology and their separate platform, because we've been able to integrate a lot of those same features, regardless of where you're coming from with your CRM.
We actually, in the distant past, we used to be a Salesforce implementation company. It's been a while, so I don't want to pretend to have a lot of in-depth knowledge on it, but I can say that Copilot is a much more current and up-to-date AI in general, probably than Einstein is. It's been around for a long time. And Copilot's actually built on top of OpenAI, which is basically the company that's behind ChatGPT, which is pretty well recognized as the leader of large language model, generative AI capabilities in the marketplace today. So there's a more robust set of use cases that it fits in with well.
Mm-hmm. I think during any type of conversation around AI, the topic of prompt engineering might come to mind, and it can prevent people from really utilizing the tool because, you know, the word or the term prompt engineer is thrown around, and it's a little just jarring to think that, oh, do I have to be a prompt engineer? Do I have to be an AI expert before I start using this thing? And by the time you try to be an expert in it, the thing that was really helpful at one point has now accelerated so much that you have to like relearn and kind of catch up with the time. So can you talk a little bit about how advanced you have to be in using AI in order to use Copilot, and the accessibility of people at, you know, different levels if they've never used it before?
I'd love to take the first shot at that one if I could. I may ruffle some feathers because there is some science behind this idea of prompt engineering, but I've disliked the term prompt engineering almost from the time that I heard it, because it's a very intimidating term and it's off-putting to folks who are already might be not the most technology forward people. Copilot or any generative AI, but Copilot in particular, it's a conversation with a new persona, right? It would be like saying, hey, we've hired a corporate attorney. You better go learn how to talk to an attorney before you're allowed to talk to an attorney, right? Of course not. This is someone you're having a conversation with, and you're going to get better at engaging with someone the more you attempt to have the conversation. Prompt engineering kind of sounds like I've got to figure out the one magical way to ask this question to get the answer I want right away. That's not true at all. You'll get more efficient, but it's perfectly fine to say, I'm asking the question. You look at the answer like, that's not exactly the answer that I wanted. It didn't understand how I asked it. Ask it again. And the nice thing about Copilot, depending on where you're engaging with it, it remembers the context. So it's taking the conversation you've already had so far, and it's continuing to engage with you to get better and smarter about it. So is there a place for getting better and better with that? Yes. Do you need to be a prompt engineer before you can be effective at engaging with Copilot? Not at all.
And to that point, before you are at that prompt engineer level, maybe you're newer to the process, just starting to play around inside of the tools and see how it can benefit you in your work. Copilot kind of fills in that gap for you. So I've noticed a lot in my use cases. Jeff and I have been in meetings, and even at times where I don't know the prompt to ask, I'm not sure what questions I should be asking to move the meeting along, Copilot itself is going to give you options to choose from. So even if you aren't the most well-versed or don't fully understand what Copilot can offer to you, you don't really have to worry to start out because it's automatically going to give you some suggestions. And all you have to do is click right on the question, and it's going to start answering those prompts and giving you all the needed information. So it does fill in that gap quite a bit on its own.
Yeah, those are great points, Jordan and Jeff. I think the fact that you don't have to be an expert at all, you can just be a user of Outlook and Teams, and Copilot fills that gap, as Jordan mentioned. It's going to give you suggestions on, hey, here's what I think the next best action is. But ultimately, you're the pilot deciding, okay, the action I should take. Let's see what it looks like, being very intentional behind, okay, this is the next step I need to take in my Outlook draft journey or whatever it may be. But that's why Microsoft has infused Copilot in your everyday productivity applications like Outlook, like Teams, or even Word, because you're using them all the time. So the user experience is very consistent across all the different Copilots.
I think that's so helpful that it does fill in some of those gaps for you when you're not really sure what to ask next. It kind of prompts you, and it's like, well, I think this could be helpful if you asked me this. It's like just giving you a little tip, like maybe ask me this question and I'll give you a better answer. So yeah, I think that's really helpful to move along the conversation with Copilot. So we had John submit a question. Can Copilot consume private company data, and can we keep the data private?
So I can answer that. A lot of our customers are curious about whether customer data is used to train Microsoft's model, and the answer is no. Microsoft does not use customer data to train any of the models, and all of the private company data that you have is again backed by Azure-grade enterprise security, so it stays within your demo tenant for your CRM connectivity. So everything that you input into Copilot for Sales is protected with compliance and privacy and security, and it's not used to train Microsoft's data models. So you can rest assured that it's completely safe and secure.
What I would add to that, while that's absolutely true, at the same time, it is a benefit that it can show you your company data within it, right? Something like ChatGPT, it's like it can't look at your private company data at all. Whereas Copilot can actually use Microsoft Search and the graph and things like that to say, hey, these look like things within your private protected data that's sitting inside of Microsoft 365, or by the way, custom connectors that you can use to connect to any other data source you want. And I can provide that back to you as an answer to your question, but I'm not going to use that information to train the model. So John, the answer to your question is yes, it can consume that data and make it available to your users to make them more efficient and productive, but it cannot consume that data in such a way that it's training the model and making it available to someone outside of your firewall. And
to throw in, just kind of, I guess, like summarize some of that, as assuming that some of these questions coming from people already familiar or already using the Microsoft 365 product suite, the level of compliance that those applications meet, that you already have those applications set up to meet, Copilot meets those same levels of compliance. So if you're already in the M365 suite, you already have your policies and procedures set up to meet certain compliance expectations, Copilot's going to be able to do those same things for you.
On the topic of company data and prompts and conversations with Copilot, what about referencing previous conversations? So if I'm, having a conversation with Copilot in one app or at one point in time, and then I want to restart that conversation kind of in a new way or pull in information that I want it to have remembered when I bring up lead's name in the conversation, can it remember previous conversations that I've had with Copilot for Sales?
I'll go ahead and kick this one off. From what I've seen, and could be corrected if otherwise, the conversation itself, it's not gonna automatically remember, but Copilot, no matter where it's at, whether it's Teams, Excel, Dynamics, PowerPoint, it's gonna give you the ability to pull references into that conversation. So if I am going into Word and I wanted to, generate a document, I could obviously type up a prompt and it'll give me the result based on the prompt I give it. But I can elevate that quite a bit by giving it reference materials to go off of. So I can give it other documents that I want it to generate in the same style of. I can give it a PowerPoint presentation and have it build out an outline of full text based around the PowerPoint presentation that I uploaded as a reference to it. So the conversation doesn't always carry over like application to application, but the amount of different materials that you can reference in and give it to generate the content for you is quite robust and allows you to at least have some consistency there across the different applications, even without that conversation there.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jordan. I think the fact that it is robust and it's able to surface your data in the way that you'd like to surface it. And the reason I pause for a second is so I can just show you my demo environment and the way it pulls it into Copilot for Sales. So I just want to quickly share my screen just so you can see what I'm talking about. Just want to confirm you all can see my Outlook and Copilot for Sales.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So as you see where we were earlier in drafting emails in our Copilot for Sales sidecar, when you go to the bottom of related items, your Copilot also shows you the last 10 emails and meetings from Outlook and Teams. So it shows you some of the related items it's using for that summary by Copilot, or even the key points that you have within the conversation as well. So you're able to see some of these conversations surface directly in Copilot for Sales for your own visibility as well.
And there is some context to remembering conversations in Copilot. So it really depends on where you did something. So in some cases, as Jordan said, it's got access to a lot of things and all that rich information. Prachi showing you some other things in the sidecar. But if I'm, for instance, doing engaging with Copilot in Copilot for Teams, Teams chat, I can actually see all of my conversations there. And I can go open a conversation and continue that conversation in context. So there are some contexts where that's available. There are others where it's not.
Well, thanks so much, guys, for that clarity. I don't see any more questions in the Q&A, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up this conversation on Copilot for Sales in relation to email efficiency. But we're so glad that all of you guys were able to make it, and we hope to see you next week for our next boot camp.